everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the High School Hub with your host, Louis Moema. For today, I am joined by Lameck Chikasi. And Lameck, before I go any further, would you introduce yourself, please?
Uh, Hi guys, I'm Lameck Chikasi. Yeah, but a lot call me Munsolio because it means clever bird. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
sure.
Nice. Okay, so welcome aboard, Lameck. I am glad to host you today on the High School Hub podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a rare privilege, and I'm humbled to be joined.
Great, great. So, to the audience out there, for today we're looking at the topic studying ahead of my teacher. Is it important? Okay. So, Lamek, the topic again is studying ahead of my teacher or lecturer. Okay. So, how important is this? So, first of all, Lamek, I just want to ask you, how important this topic is and why you think we should consider studying ahead of our lecturers or our teachers.
Okay, it's very important that one studies ahead of their teacher, but then it has to be to a certain level or extent. Because I always say direction is better than speed. So
Yeah.
you might be studying to be ahead of a teacher, but are you getting the right information? Are you using the right source of material to move ahead of your teacher? So as much as it is important to study ahead of your lecturer, your teacher, your tutor, it's also important that you consider the resource material. You look at your course outline in advance, the things that you need to cover, so that you are at the same level or using the right material, the ones that are recommended by your lecturer.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Lamek. I like how you've brought up the idea of the right material because I was driving there actually. So when you speak of the right material, you have mentioned already these should be recommended by your lecturers and by your teachers, so to say. And you have advised to that we go through the course outline or the syllabus according to your grade 12s or those pupils. We go through our syllabus to know what we have to cover. Okay. So now my question is, yes, I have the material. Yes, I have the syllabus. Yes, I study ahead of my teacher or lecturer. Question is, how effective is this? How do I know that my studies are enough for me to get in line with my lecturer? How do you know that what you've touched is convenient, is enough for you?
Okay, so I would have mentioned this earlier, but what's really important is that you need to plan. Planning is very important. Why do I say so? The 5 P's say poor planning produces poor performance. Then if we're to say poor planning is producing poor performance, then it means for you to prevent the poor performance, it means it has to be proper planning and preparation is going to produce a proper performance. So you need to plan, look at your course outline. How far do I need to go before my first test? Yeah, is it term one? Is it your first semester, your cut one? As we put it, if you're in university, how much do I need to go? And that's where now you bring in the point where you also need to be interactive. You need to interact with your tutor. Ask them, I have this course outline with me, but how far are we going before our first continuous assessment, before our first test? So that if you are studying with a view of what's ahead of you. But then if you are studying without taking into consideration what you have at hand, your tests, then you find that you'll be studying, but then you're beating about the bush. Yeah, so you need to study using the right information and knowing that you're doing the right thing. Because you might look at your course outline and maybe it says before you reach this topic, you have to write your cut one. Then now looking at circumstances, unforeseen circumstances, you find a situation where the lecturer says, okay, I'm not going to put this topic. And maybe you focus so much on that topic. Then when he decides to change that, you are stressed, then you also think to yourself, well, then what was I doing? Then those people that planned, those that went to him, asked him, oh, what am I supposed to do? He obviously pointed out to them, okay, you need to look at this. Yeah, I feel that's the best way to benefit out of your study.
That is amazing, Lameck. Thank you so much for that. It's very brief, but has covered a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of information. So let's say, Lameck, I have not been touching my books for quite some time, okay? And I'm hearing this topic today on how I should study ahead of my lecturer or my teacher. How in the world am I supposed to do that? Because I have not been studying for the past days. How do I switch my mind to begin to, study even ahead, not just what I've missed out, but the stuff that my lecturer will cover in the next 2 weeks, studying ahead. How should I get up and do this?
Okay, so there's a part where you need motivation. Yeah,
Okay.
but the motivation that you have is there's so much that you're going to risk if you don't do well in a certain test. One, that's accounted for maybe for your CA. Then again, know that there are obviously people that are investing in you that need to see good grades. I always tell myself to say, the only way I have to pay back to my parents and all those that sponsor my education is by showing them good results, because that's a motivation to say, okay, yeah, this person is grateful for the opportunity that they have. So that should be your number one motivation. And then you also need to interact with different people. Ask them their study pattern, how they've been studying. And I always tell myself to say, you might not switch to say, okay, my friend studies at 1 in the morning to like 6. So let me also adapt to that. That's quite hard, but you can obviously learn something from them. It's good to improve on your own study pattern. Because, I would give this practical example, yeah? Say I have my backyard. Say, okay, since I'm moving to a new place, let me go with this plant. So relocating that plant is obviously not going to start producing fruit as soon as I take it to wherever I'm going. The first thing that it needs to do is, one, it needs to grow new roots, and it's obviously going to shed. Then it's going to start producing. That's the same with you adapting to a new study pattern. You're not fully going to benefit from that because, well, you have to learn its ways. But then if you tell yourself to say, let me improve on what I already do, you are surely going to benefit from that. Because if I had 2 plants in the backyard and I moved one, by the time someone will be benefiting from the fruits from this one, that will be right about the time when that one will start showing its leaves because it's shaded in the first place. So yeah, it's good to just improve on your own study skills, and you also need to interact with different people and always open. It's better than go to them, ask them questions, and we all learn by asking questions.
True that. Thank you for that, Lameck. So now imagine this scenario, okay, where I have been studying ahead of my lecturer or my teacher. How do I know that I have covered enough? Okay, what confidence will I have that will tell me that, okay, Louis, you have covered quite enough stuff and you're ready for the next 2 weeks. You're ready for the test in 2 weeks' time. What are the signs or the symptoms of that?
Okay, I wouldn't say there are any signs because we all study. Everyone studies, yeah. And yeah, the only way that you tell to say, okay, I've done much is when you see your results. But then, according to your question, is before you go to an exam, how confident are you before you? So that's where now exam practice comes in. Exam practice. We have tutorial sheets. If you're in high school, you have past papers. you have knowing the examiner's minds. You can go through a lot of questions. Then you can to your tutors, ask them if they can recommend any booklet, past paper that has questions that you need to go through. Then you see how good you are answering those questions. And you know, in most of our study, we just answer questions, but who's there to see if you're doing the right thing? That's why now you need to go back. If you have a question about something, you go back to your lecturer, show them, okay, I found this solution. Is this okay? Then he's going to advise. Then some people end up cramming instead of studying to understand.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you might say, okay, I'm studying ahead, meaning I have to be at a faster pace. But just as I said in the first place, it's not the speed, but the direction. And direction doesn't just mean east to west. No, it means, are you doing the right thing? Do you take into consideration looking at your own course outline? Because me, when I look at my course outline, it has sample questions just at the beginning of my course outline. And it says, okay, by the end of this topic, you have to know this. Same applies to grade 12s. I used to use a book called Progress. Yeah. So that book also has questions at the back. It also has questions at the beginning of the topic, like just questions that you need to go through before you do the topic. Then after you do the topic, you obviously go back to those questions and see if you can tackle those questions. And you know, the questions are put there to see if you are studying to understand or you are just cramming so that you can be ahead of your teacher, which is not an effective way to study.
Again, thank you so much for that. Like, now you just hit my mind when you say those people who they cram ahead of their lecturer or teacher and not study ahead. Okay, so they don't understand what they're doing per se. Now, I just want you to talk to somebody out there who has been doing this for quite some time, and the person thinks this actually works out. So let's say me, for example, instead of me studying, I go and I make sure that I read through my notes and I cram the whole idea. Okay, my exams come in the next 2 weeks, and bam, I've aced it. This, of course, is not a good habit because there's a time when I may fall in the future. It may be closer than I even think or imagine. So Lameck, please just touch on this phrase that I have just passed on how people should avoid ahead of your teacher, but rather study to understand.
Yeah, so when you talk of cramming, this is why you study or you want to learn a lot of information in a short period of time. You are out of time. So this is when you have a lot of work to do. So this is not a good way to study, though it works for most of the people out there. And it also works for me though. Yeah, I might say I'm also a victim to it, but then it's not a good way to study because you obviously find that just after your test, all the information that you had, the data you'll not have it after the test. You're studying for the test and you're not studying to learn, to understand. Because not because of you have an exam, a test, you are learning those skills so that when you go out there in the field, you can apply them and use them. So if you're cramming, then you're just studying for the test, but then are you studying to learn, to apply those things so that you can use them when you go out in the field? Yeah, so it's not a good way of studying, though you might ace an exam. And most of the people that cram even do better than those that study to understand. But then the problem comes when you go out there in the field, because most of the study that you did was cramming. You weren't learning to understand. So if you're faced with an obstacle in the field, you obviously fail to handle it because you are getting that information for the sake of passing and not understanding and later applying it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lameck. I like how you mentioned on people who cram get the idea for the test or the exam there and then rather, and once the exam or test is done, their minds are blank, as we don't even understand, or which is not a good thing. Okay, so can you teach us how not to cram, Lameck? Okay, this should be something very practical. As you have said, we are getting into the field where we have to apply our skills. Okay, what we have, and we have to apply what we have learned throughout school, throughout university. So what if I've been cramming the whole time and I'm in the field? Then what, Louis? How are you going to, inject a patient? How are you going to do this and that if you've been cramming the whole time? So, Lameck, can we just stress more on this fact of cramming and how to avoid cramming? Okay. So let's say you're talking to me, okay, directly to me, and you're trying to teach me to get rid of that's the concept in my mind that says, Louis, just cram this page, you're gonna be all right. Can you go through that
Okay.
for us?
Yeah. Okay. You know what I feel is most people cram because uh, it works for them, and cramming is most people do cram when they know, okay, my test is in the next weeks. You know, I have a lot of data. Well, I have physics, I have chemistry, I have the
Yeah.
biology, I have the math,
Mm-hmm.
and you only have 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, you only have studied. You just want to study because at the end of the day, you need to pass and go to the next level, the
Mm-hmm.
next grade, the next STEM. Yeah. So just as the topic is, yeah, studying in advance, why it is important. So it's
Yeah.
important because it gives you much time after you're done. Because in the first place, when you study in advance, it helps you reach your academic goal. That's
Yeah.
you cover the syllabi and you also cover
Mm-hmm.
the course outline. So it means when
Mm-hmm.
you have a study break, you use that study break not to study but to practice what you are studying.
Nice.
But most people use the study break to cram. So you see, there's a difference between a person that was studying to understand and the person that
Yeah.
was saying, okay, I still have time, yeah,
Yeah.
night before an exam is what counts for me. I have the ability to start the book from the first to the last and still offload that data on the page. Yeah. But if you plan, just as I said, proper planning produces proper
Mm-hmm.
results and products. So if you plan
Mm-hmm.
in advance to say, okay, well, look, I have 4 months this semester, then I
Yeah.
have 4 courses. So you need to look at how much time you need to spend on this subject and that
Mm-hmm.
subject. You also need some time to recreate because it's important. If you do a sport,
Yeah.
you take that into consideration. Yeah, because too much of everything is bad. Even too much of your
Of
study
course.
is bad. Yeah, because you just can't be studying and forgetting these other things because they're also important to you.
Yeah.
So for you to avoid cramming, it means you have to plan. You plan in advance. You say, okay, I need to cover this material before this time so that the
Mm-hmm.
time I'm approaching my study break, well, I plan to say, okay, during the study break, I'll focus more on maybe the tutorial sheets, I'll answer questions, you know what I mean? Yeah. So while your
Yeah.
friends are practicing, you're cramming. It means you won't practice, but you just cram. So you go into an
Mm-hmm.
exam and they'll give you questions that you don't even know how to, sorry for that. So they'll give you questions. Then how should you answer those questions? Because, well, you didn't practice. That's why exam
Yeah.
practice is important. You find that those people that study ahead leave some time for revision. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also important that you study ahead. During the lecture time, you take that time to now like fill in the blanks because
Yeah.
there are some things that you didn't just understand.
Yeah.
So now that's a time for you to, participate in class, ask questions, because there are just some things that the lecturer needs to do. So use that time to, in those that you didn't understand a certain point. And you find that if you study ahead, you even enjoy your lectures. Why?
Yeah.
Because you know what's being talked about. It's being talked about, and it's so interesting. And you find that most of the people that sleep in class, those do not
Yeah.
enjoy the lecture. It's because they don't know what's being talked about. Why? Because they wait, no, he'll come introduce a topic and we're going to learn. Then when he comes, you're confused because you don't know what's being talked about.
Exactly.
But if you study ahead,
Exactly.
you know what's being talked about. So you just use that time to ask questions, to participate, fill in the blanks. And there are just certain things that you can't find in the book that the lecturer will tell you. Because obviously,
Yeah.
before he prepared the lesson, he used about 4 or 5 books, and you're only using one book that works for you.
Yeah.
So you find that you only looked at 3 examples of something, then he stresses out 5, plus maybe those 3, meaning you have 8. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good thing. It's a good thing to study ahead.
Nice. Nice. So that actually reminds me of me, how there's a time when I thought, okay, we just got into school, our semester just started. There is no need of me to go through the syllabus or whatever. I'll be fine. I'm just gonna be fine. Then class came, we started class, and the lecturer is trying to explain a concept, and I'm like, what is this man doing? Why is he here? So it is stressful, honestly, to know that there are people out there who understand the lecture that's being conducted, but you're there blank, like blank. There's nothing in your head. Then there's times also when I have studied ahead rather, and I know what the lecturer is talking about. There is joy to that, guys. So Lameck, thank you so much for the tips and for everything you have shared with us this afternoon. I just want you to say something to somebody out there, your last words before we can end this podcast.
Sure, thank you very much. Yeah, so to my friends out there, I would advise you to always study ahead. And before you do that, please plan. Yeah. Don't just, don't just watch this, then after this, you say, okay, let me start studying ahead. Well, it might not work for you in the first place, but as you keep on doing it, you find that you're going to adapt to it and you're surely going to benefit from it. So the most important thing is that before you study ahead, you need to plan. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Lameck. So guys out there and girls out there, you have had this today. Plan and study ahead. Do not forget to plan. It's the biggest, the basic, the foundation that you need. Okay, so plan and then study ahead. So I'm grateful to have this time, to have had this time with you, Lameck. Thank you so much for joining the High School Hub today.
Yeah, I'm also grateful for the opportunity. Yeah, it's rare, and I hope to join in again. Yeah.
We hope so too. We hope so too. So to those out there, it's goodbye for now. I hope you guys have picked up a thing or two or many from our podcast today. Thank you so much, the world out there, for being part of our podcast today. Have a lovely day, night ahead of you. Thank you.